Hello and welcome to the Product OpsCast with Graham Reed and Antonia Landi. Welcome, Antonia. How are you doing today?
I am fantastic. Thank you for asking, Graham.
Good stuff. Our very special guest today is Cindy Camacho, the award-winning product management leader, formerly at Vivo Aquatics, industry expert on voice of the customer strategies. Cindy, hello, welcome.
Hi, Graham. Hi, Antonia. Very nice to meet you guys and be here today. I'm super honored.
We are just as honoured to have you here. Cindy, I've personally been following you. I think both of us have been following you for quite a while now. We've chatted quite a lot about various bits and pieces you're up to. But do you want to just give us a quick intro to yourself and what you're involved in?
Oh, sure. Well, I love product management. I think everybody knows that. I talk about it all the time. But I didn't start in product management. I actually started in support roles like customer support and account management. I started my career solving problems and more like reactive problems. I was there to help my customers with whatever they needed. And sometimes, solving their problems was just making them feel heard, making them feel supported. And that taught me a lot. That taught me how critical empathy is and how listening can, diffuse tension, build trust. When you talk to somebody, you feel better. There's like a connection. So that helped me. And it was a realization, like over time, I transitioned, into product management. And I was like, I don't want to be a reactive problem solver. I want to be a proactive problem solver. I want to understand what their needs are before they turn into like super big escalations. And then I also noticed something in all my roles, people like teams who listen to each other, they were better aligned. They were better, enablers. It was a great environment. They didn't treat the internal voices as noise. They treated it more as like signals. Like, what can we do with this information? So that was really like my fuel for founding VOC Strategies. I want to help customers harness the power of voice of the customer, not just externally, but internally as well.
Fab. Well, that's absolutely great intro. I love the depth that you've talked about there. And this is exactly the topic of today. We're going to dive into now is to talk about the idea of that internal voice of the customer. I think everybody in product management kind of knows and hears so much about the voice of the customer in terms of as a business, our actual customers, but with product operations in particular. Now, our customers are our colleagues, our peers around the business most often, our leadership. And so that internal voice of the customer is just as important. So really looking forward to hearing more about your strategies of listening and learning, and everything that you have to share. So kind of, I'd love to hand over to you and talk to a bit about your story and what your topics are for today.
Yeah. The organization is my customer. When it's the internal voice of the customer, you're listening to the org. So in the product world, we use voice of the customer as, the feedback loop that guides us for everything, for new products, for services, roadmap development, positioning and messaging. Like those key decisions are truly impacted by the voice of the customers. Your customers are the internal teams like product engineering, marketing, support, all those teams that you work with day in and day out. And just like any customer, they're going to have problems. There's going to be like friction and unmet needs and expectations. And they have success metrics that they need to meet, just like you have success metrics that you need to meet, same metrics with our external customers most of the time. So collecting the voice of the customer, isn't just about like a survey, right? Typically we'll be like, oh, let's run a survey. Let's see how they're doing. Let's get that feedback. It's so much more than that. It's so much more than that. Like you have to create like those feedback loops, those listening sessions. You can have like those council meetings, post-mortems, like, hey, what could we do better? What did we do wrong? You can do a pre-mortem to determine, hey, what does bad look like? And let's make sure we don't do that. But watching where the process breaks down, just like external voice of the customer guides the customer journey, internal voice of the customer guides the product journey. And that's why product operations is so critical.
Absolutely.
I like this idea of internal customers. It's interesting because I've worked on a fair number of internal products anyway, where that distinction or like that idea of having internal customers was very real, right? It wasn't a big leap to make because it's an internal product. we have internal customers just like we would have external ones. But this whole idea of having internal customers and integrating their voice into what you're doing when it comes to change, when it comes to advocacy, when it comes to better practices, I think is something that for some might be a little leap, but I think it's just so important because, I mean, we cannot do product operations in a vacuum, right? Like we can decide things if we want to, we can create templates or have guidelines for any number of things. But at the end of the day, the people actioning that change is the people who are inside the organization. And we need to listen to them so much throughout everything we do.
It's interesting. Is there a difference between those internal customers that you describe, which because you're building a product that is for people internally to use, and internal customers being people that you support, that you help, that you facilitate, that you enable in product operations, all those lovely words that we use about how we work with our staff, they are our customers too. But we're not necessarily, I guess we are also still providing products for them. But is there a distinction between those two camps, even internally?
Well, I would say the process of validation is the same. So before you make any decision, you're going to validate that this is the right decision to make. Just like when you do product market fit, or you want to make sure, you have a viable product in the market that's going to be, it's going to make money, that's going to solve a problem. Internally, when we capture all that feedback, we're still using it as data. And we're using it as data to make a decision, right? Do we, implement this new workflow? Do we implement this process? Do we, purchase this new internal product to help us with efficiency, operational excellence? We are using the data just like we would use it externally, with customer feedback. The process is the same. Now, how you treat your internal teams, I would treat them with the exact same amount of value that I would treat a customer, because you guys are literally helping us be successful. Customers are helping us be profitable. We need both of them together. There's an absolute synergy there.
I love that. And it's a really interesting question, Graham. This question of, okay, you have internal customers that are using an internal product, and you have people for whom, you optimize the operating model. Are these the same types of customers? And I think I actually agree with Cindy in saying yes, but I do think there is a slight distinction there in the way you might be getting that feedback. Because I think when it comes to change initiatives, things can get pretty personal, pretty quick, pretty emotional, like positive and negative, right? So I think it's more about establishing a one-to-one human connection, right? It's maybe slightly more about involving the human as well as purely trying to understand what problems they are facing. I think with an internal product, you tend to have more or less fairly straightforward problems, right? I need to achieve X. I'm currently blocked from doing so, or I'm not doing it well enough with the tools you have given me, for example. Whereas when it comes to things like how do we communicate, or how do we live our strategy, I think it can get almost more philosophical at times, right? I think you have slightly deeper conversations as when you're dealing with internal products.
How much of this is this starting to overlap then between when you've got those internal customers, regardless of who actually they are, you've got a product and and then a service element to that. Okay, so two slightly different tracks. And what you're saying there about kind of actually in terms of how we communicate, some of the processes that we follow, some of the expectations that we start to put on people and things. How much do we feel then that actually that then starts to overlap with, dare I say, line management, senior leadership, guidance for the team, the division, the whole business potentially even as well? And Cindy, absolutely love to hear your perspective on this as well, is kind of how much overlap do you feel that there is in that?
I think product operations has an advantage because we are closer to our internal teams sometimes than we are with our customers. Probably all the times, if you think about it, we have that proximity, right? So we have proximity, which is an advantage for us. We have proximity plus influence. So we have more control over that change process than with customers because, it's a process to gather all that feedback, to talk to, cohort of the same type of target audience. Internally, we can do that better and faster, and we can make decisions, more informed decisions, and fail fast. Just like in, product development, we'll fail fast. Come on, iterate. Internally, because we have that proximity and that advantage of influence, I feel as though it's a more powerful combo internally.
Yeah, I think it's so much easier to get that almost instant feedback when you're dealing with internal customers or internal users, because like ultimately in product management and product operations, it's you're targeting changes in behavior, right? Whether, I don't know, if you're a yoga app, you want somebody to do daily yoga practice so that they definitely subscribe to your app, or whether you're asking people to, I don't know, do weekly check-ins, whatever it is, have retros more often. But if you're in an internal environment, you can literally go there and be like, okay, you failed to fill this out, or, whatever it is, we targeted a new template, you didn't do it, tell me why. Or you can literally just sit there and be like, talk me through this, right? There is such a shorter line of communication, whereas with external users, you're setting up calls, you're doing discovery, like you do all of the same things, but the speed at which you get to do it and the depth at which you get to do it is much, much shorter and quicker with internals.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. I'd love to dive in a little bit more, Cindy, to what you started saying at the very start, which was kind of those feedback loops, are much, much more than just a survey or filling out a regular form or something like that. I'd love to hear so much more about kind of the different approaches and I guess that's something that my listeners might well be interested in, is kind of at what levels do you kind of initiate these things at? Just a simple survey is clearly kind of almost your level 1 or level 0. But then kind of what's your more complicated, more involved steps? I'd love to just dive into more of this with you.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, first of all, we got to ask the questions, right? You can get so much by just using 5 whys. So tell me why, peel the onion, right? Get to the root of it. We want this and we want that, but why? What's the real problem here? What does success look like for you? Because we can get there in 10 different ways, right? So I think one method is just ask first, collect the input, you can do that through retros, through roundtables, through one-on-ones, and then listen, of course, voice of the customer, you have to listen. But with the listening comes the, synthesizing the data so you can look for those patterns. And when you find those patterns, when you find those similarities, then now you are really painting a picture. And of course, now you want to understand thoroughly the pain points. So now you're really collecting that data like you do externally, and that you can act on it. So you want to share your feedback, you want to share your insights, you want to prioritize based on, the value and the feasibility. Take action that builds trust. So prioritize internal enablement like you prioritize external enablement. So it's so important that we have that trust and relationship and that cross-functional alignment between all the different teams. So, clarify the process, right? So what are we doing? Why are we doing this? What's the value in this? Because how people, they don't want to be told what to do. People want to know why they're doing something. How is this going to benefit me? What's in it for me, right? We have that little I. What's in it for me? Well, if I tell you what's in it for you and I show you how it's going to help you, I'm adding the value. It's the same thing with an external customer. Why should I buy your product, right? It's from moving from like the problem area to the solution area, right? So, speaking that language with that customer, internal or external, and you're going to talk to sales different. You're going to talk to marketing different. You're going to talk to ops different. Everybody is a different customer. So you have to also be a little chameleon and adapt to their styles, right? Kind of have that ability to connect with them at their level where they're at. So, you have to have that charisma, and, once you get all that data, synthesize it, report it back, explain to them, why we're doing this, what it's going to do for us, and then all the stuff we love to measure, make sure we can measure it, right? And the measuring, you put all those good metrics together, but it has to be metrics that matter. What are the things that we're trying to measure so we can track success? if, success looks like this for you and it looks like this for you, make sure that it's, specific and targeted enough so we can see, how we're moving, where the dial is going.
Yeah. I think like something you touched upon, that trust, that is imperative when you're dealing with internal users, because the thing, like most of the things I actually find easier if you're dealing with internals, except the added dimension of trust, of politics, of not wanting to hurt your feelings, or maybe wanting to hurt your feelings, right? Like an external user who you're just doing a survey with or doing a customer interview with, they don't really care about your feelings by and large. They don't really have a secret hidden agenda, right? If you're collecting feedback internally, people might be silent, even though they actually have a lot of feedback, but maybe it's not the right forum. You're asking in a big call. Maybe they don't want to hurt your feelings. Maybe they feel a bit silly because they weren't quite sure what you expected of them. Right? So this added layer, this added human dimension is definitely one that makes gathering internal feedback more difficult. And that's exactly where that empathy, that trust, that charisma a little bit is so important.
Is there something that I've used quite well in the past is to try and position product ops, particularly when I'm looking for that feedback, and maybe not so much on on products and services, but actually looking much more about kind of how we're working together, building that trust. How do we build that trust? I've quite often found success in positioning product ops as being adjacent to other departments. Actually, we're a bit unbiased. We don't take sides. We are external from, at least conceptually, external from other departments. So do you know what? You can come and talk to me, and actually I'm going to listen quite objectively at what you have to say. I'm not going to sit here and get cross because you are not happy with something that product management have done or the engineers have done, because I'm not conceptually aligned to them. And I think that's a part there is to provide that environment of, we can share openly. I've frequently found, as I'm sure everybody has, you whack out a survey without good kind of context as to how this information is going to be used. People then become afraid. Am I going to get picked up on this? Is this going to be counted against me when I have my performance review? Are people going to kind of come down on me because I've badmouthed X, Y, and Z? And actually positioning what you want to find out and how this information is going to be used, I always feel is such a critical part of this.
And that resonates with me because I strongly believe in, psychological safety in the workplace. And that is an agile scrum fundamental in product development, because, you have to have the courage to speak open about ideas that you have, right? And, in product development, when we're working with, engineers and developers, we have multitude of personalities who are very, very passionate about what they want to do. And, there's going to be conflict. There's going to be different opinions on what direction, what should we launch? What features should we implement? What product should we build, right? So you have to have that psychological safety, and that is cultural for sure. And with product managers, we do not have any authority most of the time. We influence. And when you are a product manager that isn't a developer by trade, you have to gain respect through the quality of your work and through the knowledge that you bring and being a subject matter expert, right? That's how you gain trust and respect and seen as a valuable key player. And, they're not just going to out the gate respect you. You have to prove that you are worthy of respect and you know what you're talking about, and you can talk the talk, right? You walk the walk. So, having that trust also comes from being a good decision maker, being somebody who is, an expert in the field. You are not afraid to admit when you have made mistakes. You praise those, you have good collaboration, good camaraderie. There's a great connection there, because sometimes you can agree to disagree and walk away still, with the same level of admiration that you came with, right? So like you said, Antonia, it is a little bit harder to be honest with people that you're working with day to day, because there is those politics. I think using the methodologies that we use in product development with that psychological safety in the workplace and coming with already like that trusted advisor, that trusted consultant, right? Coming with that already will open the honesty, because they know that you're only doing this for everybody's better interest. You do not have an agenda here, right? You don't have a motive here. And, if you think about the organization as your customer, at the end of the day, you're doing what's best for the organization, right? We're doing what's best for our customers when we build a product, right? I don't have like a personal mission here. This is for you, the customer. So I think navigating that fear of, oh, I can't be honest with them, I can't be transparent because there's going to be this type of retaliation. Well, you have to gain it, you have to earn it, and over time, that you're going to remove those layers.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting and so important. I actually find that a really good way of increasing psychological safety is to role model it, right? And to get out there and say, I made a mistake. Right? We tested this out. It didn't work. We're going back to the drawing board. But also, when you're in a position like product operations and you need your teams to do more discovery, do better discovery, do more experimentations, you bet your ass you should be doing exactly the same thing, right? And it goes back to that role modeling. Like, a good product ops manager is doing all of the same best practices in their daily work and is role modeling that it is possible and that it is important, right, to the entire team by doing it.
I think that's so much to talk about there, and agree with all of it. Antonia, what you said there, role modeling the behavior is absolutely fundamental to all psychological, in my opinion, all psychological safety anyway. I mean, absolutely not afraid to make mistakes yourself is a part of that, because what we want that kind of no blame culture. We want that no fear culture. We want to be able to fail fast. We want to be able to try something. Our teams to try something. And how do we do that? Well, we do that. Every time I'm doing something in Product Ops, I'm like, I don't have the answer. I'm going to try this out if I don't know if it doesn't work already. And if it doesn't work, okay, well, great. We've not really lost anything, and we can iterate and we'll make it better. The interesting piece, I think, is kind of like you say, building that trust over time. Absolutely. I personally feel, and this might be a bit controversial, that I think too many people feel like they need instant trust, particularly when they're new into a role, particularly in product management and things like that. There's a lot of talk right now about kind of, do they have autonomy? They have the right amount of autonomy to go after the things. And I think autonomy and trust comes hand in hand. You can have that autonomy, but fundamentally, you've got to earn the trust of leadership first in order to kind of be able to have that. It's not just something that should be given out. That's just being sensible. I think one thing that I'd love to ask both of you on is, and Antonia, you picked up on this, when you want teams to go out and do something, quite often something they might not necessarily want to do, does building that trust up firstly help? Okay, yes, it does. But actually, does it also help you set your stall out to kind of say, look, this is who I am. This is the way that I'm going to approach things. And sometimes I will tell you, I've explained all the values to why to do this. But at the end of the day, we are going to do this. You just need to get on with it. This is the decision that has been made. What's both your feelings on this?
Yeah, I think for me, there's a couple of ways I do that. And I think usually that's where that trust really comes in, right? Because you need enough trust for them to just go, just trust me. Like, just 4 weeks, we'll try it, right? Just hopefully we've established enough of a relationship, enough of a connection. I have a baseline of competence that you can just suspend your disbelief for a few weeks. Yeah. And then we'll reconvene and we'll collaborate. And if it doesn't work, I'll listen and I'll be there. And, I'll have that empathy as a product ops leader to then say, scrap it, right? We're done. We've tried it. It didn't work. Or to actually build it out and improve it going forward together.
So this brought up like a really hard time in my career where I tried to implement something in an organization that wasn't ready for it. And I parachuted in like, the hero that was going to save the day with all of my cool, task lists and workflows and processes and methodologies. And this company was not ready for that, nor did they want to do it. That's not where they were at in their life cycle as a company. I was over here, they were over there. I learned the hard way that when a company is in a certain phase in their growth and they have a certain culture, you really do need to meet them where they're at, and baby steps, baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. Do not drink from the fire hose. It's a lose-lose situation for everybody, right? You're gonna lose trust immediately because the result of what you've implemented will be bad, because they are not ready for it. And that's why listening to the internal voice of the customer is so important, because you are going to know where they are on that maturity scale, whether they're product led or sales led or content led. It depends, right? Especially if you are an external person coming in, right? You're a new hire. If you are a, internal person transitioning into that role, it might be a little different. You might already have that trust because you've worked in other positions, right? If you're a new person coming in, they don't know you from Adam. So they're like, who is this new chick? I don't know her. She comes from, corporate America, Fortune 500 company. We're a small startup with 60 people. So that's another thing you really have to pay attention to, is like, where is that company at right now? And implement what you can, baby steps, little by little, because sometimes, going slow and steady will have better results in the long run.
Yeah, I think everybody in product ops has a nightmare story like that.
Right?
I have one that's very similar.
I think absolutely. I think we all do. I think it's a great topic to stop on for a second, because how many times, Antonia, certainly you and I, how many times do we get asked, what's the blueprint for this? I am X size company, so what should I do? And it's absolutely different, doesn't it? You can be a carbon copy every single time in terms of number of people, size of business, trajectory, sector, and it will still be different, because Product Ops is such a people role. It's so much about working with those people and influencing them, looking at their behaviors, how they're going to react to change, how do we step them through change and improvement, that it's all down to the individual personalities and the combination of those personalities as well. So this idea of kind of a blueprint, you're going to walk into a business and kind of go, well, I've done this before, and I've done this before, and I've done this before, so this should be easy. It's just out the window straight away.
Absolutely. I've been, not one company has done it the same. Not one. I have a portfolio career. I've bounced around so many times, so many different industries. I've held multiple product roles, and I've felt very fortunate because I've had that experience in those positions. But the one thing that I can say has been the consistent thing is no one's the same. Everybody's different. No organization does it the same way. They have created a process that is for them. So you certainly do need to adapt and be flexible and be nimble. And if you come with that foundation of product operations and you understand like the best practices and what should we be doing, awesome. That's great. That's like you've already come in there as a subject matter expert in your field, right? Now what you need to do is understand the industry, understand, the company culture, understand the external customers. Like there's so much more you still need to understand before you can try to implement something that's really going to change these people's work lives.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I had a manager tell me once, and this was at the time where I came in as a new product ops leader and I was very much struggling. And he told me, there's people who start with trust at 10, and then you can do things to decrease that trust. There's people who start at 0, and you can go either way. And then there's people who start at -10, and you need to do your hardest work to get them even to 0 so that they'll listen to you. And it's so interesting, right? Because of the type of work and type of industry we're in, you have these additional layers of worst case, you're somebody in a new org, maybe in a completely different size than what you're used to, right? Well, who is this corporate chick going into startup, or the other way around, the startup gal who's never worked in a corporate a day in her life, in a role nobody understands, in a role that people aren't even sure is necessary. And now she's sitting there telling us how to do our job, right? It's intense.
Big time.
And that is a fundamental part of what we do, particularly at the very early part of our tenure in any business. Doesn't matter how experienced we are what our reputations are. We still go in. I did when I joined Helios, where I am at the moment. I was asked to come and join by my CPO, ironically, because he's seen these podcasts and seen all my writings and things like that predominantly. And I still had to go in and do a whole kind of walk the floor, understand what everybody was doing. I had to go in and explain exactly what Product Ops was going to do, what it isn't going to do for them as well, absolutely, and build that trust, not just in myself, but in the function, in what Product Ops is going to do for them. And I think that's a big part of that engagement anyway. We're talking about voice of the customer. We want to put them at ease. We want to make sure that they've got the facilities to come and talk to provide information in. But we also, that relationship is two-way. We have to be able to provide the information back out. We have to provide them that trust back out as well. So I just find this such an interesting part, or part of the role. But this conversation, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm so glad we're talking about this, because when I see internal feedback not taken seriously, it is detrimental. I knew he was coming. I told you.
Yay!
You made an appearance.
He's my space. Oh my gosh. So that's Nugget. I think what I was trying to say was, when you don't value the internal voice, the external voice can hear that. Have you ever called customer service and they badmouth a product, their product, right? I called XYZ company regarding XYZ product, and the representative was like, oh gosh, I wish they didn't release that. Oh, it's a da 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 da. And I'm like, okay, you work for them. I'm a customer, right? I feel as though internal voice of the customer can help with that, because this sales rep did not understand the value of this particular feature. They thought it was actually causing more problems. If there was internal voice of the customer, there could have been some kind of enablement, some kind of communication that would have helped them articulate the value, see the value, convey feedback as to why they didn't think it was valuable, right? There could have been something done so that perception didn't make it externally to the customer, right? Like, don't ever badmouth your company, your product to a customer. It's such a bad tone, right? And when you have that internal understanding and that internal value, when you guys are all on the same page and you have those processes to help enable through education and training and communication and resources, and, hey, talk to me if you need anything, or come to me if you have any questions, right? If you have that internal process infrastructure already built, it will 100% ripple to the external customer. 100%.
I love that example so much. And this is such a direct use case, right? Because that person didn't feel heard, right? That person felt like they needed to go external to vent their frustration.
I didn't call you for a vent session. I called you to solve my problem. I still walked away with the problem.
So, I mean, what could we do? What would Product Ops do here to help with this? Is this enabling that voice to come back? Is it making sure that there is suitable information provided to that customer success, that customer service individual that maybe they didn't have? Is it providing channels for evangelism? Because that's a piece that stuck in my mind. There is that actually, is there enough evangelism of what's being done here? I mean, quite simply, could have just been a bad product or a bad feature, and that's perfectly possible as well. What areas would we look to attack if we knew this? What areas would we go after?
Well, I think for me, it's this. I often come across commercial teams, whether that's account management, customer success, sales, say we are worried because we don't think this is going to work. Right. And a lot of the time, the product team just goes, deal with it. We've done our discovery. We know this is going to work because this solves a pain point. And I think there's two things happening here. So on the one hand, it's this categoric batting away of internal feedback that comes from other departments that are not in R&D, product and tech. There's also such a great opportunity to involve those people earlier on in the process to say, this is what we're thinking of. This is the problem we've identified. We have validated it. If you want, you can get more information. It's here and here. This is the solution we're thinking of, so that at one point, one person can go, I am worried because X, Y, Z. Because the problem with this is, if you have these moments when you're talking about the release, if you have these moments when you're reading out the release notes, it's too late, because there's nothing anybody can really do about that, apart from just say, okay, you know what, we're not releasing, which does not happen. Under only very, very rare circumstances happens.
Yeah, what's your internal go-to-market look like?
Exactly.
What does that look like? You need an internal GTM process. You need an internal enablement process for everybody. So that way, when we do our GA launch, it's by that point, it's old business. We already knew about it. We're on to the next, because, we've been so well informed. There should be a repeatable communication flow, a repeatable process that is like a template, right? So here's the template we built for when we're going to release something, launch something. This is how we're going to communicate it. It's always going to be in this format, so it's easy to consume all the time, right? People are going to start habit forming, right? They're going to form this habit of, they know that this is coming. They know where to go to read it. They know who to ask for clarity. They know that they're going to expect to be in a training. You know what I mean? This repeatable process that is so ingrained in them that it just enables them. It connects the dots. And that's why I think product ops, the enablers, the connectors, the amplifiers, that's what you are. You are the absolute amplifiers for the organization. You're the voice of the organization.
I'm going to play devil's advocate for a moment on this scenario, just because I've seen this. I've also seen this happen quite a few times in various different organizations. Obviously, clearly, with the example, the scenario we've talked about here, there's not enough information to kind of say one way or the other. But what if this is an edge case? What if this is the problem that is an edge case that is being described, rather than kind of affecting everybody? And also, is it only affecting that individual? Is it something that individual has not picked up on, has not had the training for, versus as it is a systemic problem? Because, and there's a reason for this, is yes, we should be listening to and involving various different stakeholders across the business much earlier on in the process, without shadow of a doubt. But to what degree can we solve absolutely every problem, absolutely every edge case before a launch? With said very large multinational organization that we are not going to name because we've edited this out now, they make incredibly complex products, and it is not possible to solve absolutely every edge case every single time. So actually, what can we do in that scenario? How deep do we go into solving as many edge cases as possible before we go, no, actually we can't do anymore?
I mean, humans are the biggest variable on Earth, right? And I think it's also a return on time invested. You could optimize that specific thing out the wazoo, but if the rest of the company is breaking down, then there's not much point. So it's really just about, I think, to a certain extent, also risk, right? It's a risk assessment. Have we covered 80% of it? Great, move on. Those other 20% are minimal risk, or it would take a huge amount of time to address those. Time that could be spent elsewhere getting something else to 80%.
Yeah, 80-20. I love that, because it's never going to be perfect. It never is going to be perfect. But if you are doing your darndest to achieve the best possible outcome, you're doing your best to do that, then at least you can walk away knowing, as a product professional, I thoroughly did my job and I thoroughly did everything that I could. And, from what I can see and from what I can hear, I feel as though we are as aligned as we can be at this particular time.
Completely agree.
Very, very good wording. As aligned as we can be at that particular point in time. And it returns right back to this: is this organization ready for what I'm trying to do?
Totally.
Yeah. Absolutely. Really, very little to add to that. I think that's an absolute, real mic drop moment there. I think understanding what we can do with the people, with the resources that we have to hand, what can we do at that moment in time? And I think that, with product operations, we're looking at behavior. We're trying to form habits, and actually some of those decisions about how far are we going to go down this particular rabbit hole, edge cases, things like that, from a very selfish product operations perspective, actually, that's partly not necessarily our decision to make. What we would be looking at is to say, well, actually, are you firstly going through the processes that we have established, that we have all agreed upon, that we have rolled out, actually being that little devil's advocate to say, well, is that too edge case? Is that too niche for us at this moment in time to go and solve versus, do you know what, let's monitor it for 6 months, see how many cases of this we actually get. But at the same time, also recognizing, I think, that we have so many paid people, professionals that we pay in the business to do very specific roles. So product managers, designers, engineers, they are all paid as in part to make some of these decisions as well. And that's the trust that they build up. That's the reputation that they build up. That's the collaboration and the relationships that they build with us and the other parts of the business as well. It's something that I come back to, which is understanding that there are so many people as part of a business and they all have that responsibility. It's not something that an individual or one person or one team can take on the responsibility for absolutely everything. And I know so many people, particularly product managers, do take a lot of on their shoulders. When we look at this and we kind of go, yeah, but there are lots of people that should also be taking a shared responsibility for some of our decisions.
Absolutely. 100%. Whenever a thing happens, there is multiple people involved. So if there is an accident of some sort or there's a failure of some sort, it is never just one person, right? You can't just blame one person. One person caused this. No, it is a butterfly effect, a domino effect. It is the whole, group, the whole collective had some little contribution to this. And, we can't herd cats, right? And, we can't change when they're not ready for change. But what we can do is really try to implement the fundamentals of the role, of the excellence that we're trying to achieve. And measure the good, measure the bad, right? Come back to it. Do those retros. Have those one-on-ones, have those peer reviews, have those council meetings, those committee meetings. Always stay curious. I think when you just have that myopia and you don't think you can do anything else better, that's when you're going to fail. Just like in product management, when you have product myopia and you think that you have absolutely solved the problem with this product and it does nothing for the customer, wasted your time and money. Customer still has the problem, right? You invested poorly, you didn't listen to them, right? Fail fast. Make change where you can make change and influence where you can influence.
Yeah, I think, Graham, I love your point so much because honestly, I think a lot of us ended up in product ops because as PMs, we shouldered a lot of that responsibility of wanting to have a better team, a more functioning organization, trying to become more product led and try to, sort of chip away at that massive, massive change as a single individual. And it's such an important point because at the end of the day, sometimes you will have cases where you have built all the systems, but people need to use them. And some of that responsibility is on them. And I think it's such an important reminder for so many of us who might be in an organization right now where they feel like they're struggling.
Yeah, and this is we're just about to kind of come to the end now, and I think that's a very important point for us to kind of just sit on for a moment. Is product managers, in fact, anybody, particularly within the tech side of the business, there is more and more pressure than ever before to do more, to quite often do more with less, to not have the resources available to you, whether that's people or physical resources to meet all of the increasing demands, upon you. And it is so natural to kind of, when you are very passionate about what you do, to want to take on more, to want to fill those gaps. You don't want to let people down. And I think it's so easy to forget that we are part of a team, and that's not in a bad way, but you forget that actually you do have a team around you that are there to share in the success, in the failures, in the challenges, in the increased pressure, which is it's not all on you to kind of deliver everything all of the time. And I just think that's an important point for us to end on for today. And it absolutely ties into everything that we've spoken about. I certainly believe, in building that trust with your organization, with your colleagues, with your peers, listening to what they want to bring to the table, make sure that they are also listening to you as well in that reverse direction as well. And Cindy, I'd love to just hear your final thoughts on this.
Oh boy, gosh,
Nice easy one to finish on.
I know. You know, internal empathy, just like we have external empathy. Our superpower is the ability to listen. Empathy, empathy, empathy. So when you value internal empathy just as much as external empathy, you are going to succeed. So if I were to end with anything, is don't forget to empathize with problems, whether it's internal or external.
I think listen to each other, value each other, listen to yourself, listen to your own limits. Yeah.
Yep.
I've genuinely loved this conversation, Cindy.
Mm.
Thank you so much. We are out of time today. I'd like to absolutely thank our very special guest, Cindy Camacho, for everything that you've shared today. So many insights.
Thank you guys so much. I loved being here.
Thank you. Please do connect with any of us on LinkedIn. Thank you to all of you that have been watching today. Antonia and I look forward to welcoming you on to the next episode of the Product OpsCast. Thank you, everybody. See you soon.